So, what have we got today? Well, the Mirror has splashed on what seems like a very polite request, considering, which is that a woman who has served under the past 3 prime ministers, who's been in government for 10 years, and who is now our third PM in a little over 3 years, do something to fix the mess that she seems so cross about and is so completely not connected to. Now, Ben, this is a prime minister who, according to polls, 50% of the country is unhappy about her being prime minister. She was voted in by less than a third of her own MPs and has the lowest winning mandate of any Tory leader since, I think it's John Major. Can she fix it?
Well, next few years will show, won't she? She's only got a very short space of time before the next general election, which by law must be held in January 2025. She already has said that she wants to go to the polls in 2024, promising a great victory when she did her acceptance speech at the QE2 Centre in London on Monday. So she's not giving herself a lot of time. We think that she's going to make a big energy announcement, or her Chancellor could make a big energy announcement tomorrow in the Commons, but they're going to spend the day, officials in Whitehall and ministers, finalising that plan, which of course so many people, so many families, struggling households are waiting to hear how the government is going to help them, as we're all braced to these mammoth bills that are going to start landing on October the 1st as the energy price cap goes up.
Exactly. Now, get into the comments, everybody. Ask us your questions. What do you think about Liz Truss being Prime Minister? What do you think she should be doing about your energy bills? What are your energy bills like? Mine are getting pretty grim already. We'll have to see. I'm going around turning all the power off. This is the only power on in the house at the moment. Josie says there's a general election needed. Well, of course there is. There's been one needed since the last general election, Josie. But we are where we are, as is the mantra of our times, and this is the situation we find ourselves in now. On pages 2 and 3 of the Mirror today, the subs had some fun with his headlines, and having campaigned on giving no handouts to anybody to fix the energy crisis, there's now heavy briefing going on that someone's getting £100 billion of handouts. But it's not us, Ben. The briefing says it's energy companies. Now, there seems to be, tell me if I'm wrong, but there seems to be like there's a lot of kite flying going on, where the policies are being briefed to reporters like you to see how well they land with the public, perhaps. But do we think this is what's going to happen? The taxpayer paying the energy suppliers for having to buy energy at extortionate prices that are set by energy providers who are all too often owned by exactly the same company?
Well, there are several different ways of financing this, what could be a 90 to £100 billion package that we expect the government to announce tomorrow. One of the ways, of course, is by bumping up all our taxes. Well, Liz Truss has already suggested that won't happen because she said no new taxes under her premiership.
Cuts, didn't she? How's she going to cut anything?
Exactly. Now, the other way is not doing tax rises now, but pushing them on to our children and their children's children and higher taxes into the future. So essentially borrowing from the grandchildren. Then there's a way of underwriting loans. So you tell the gas companies, the electricity companies, the energy giants that they can buy wholesale at the cost that it is, and then give it to us more cheaply. So you basically are sending them money. Now, one way of doing that, of course, is to push up people's bills into the future. So you tack on 50 quid a year. But you won't start doing that until prices come down. Well, will they come down? Don't know. Could be several years before prices come down, if they ever do. And of course, that is eventually putting up the costs. We don't know which version the government will go for. Neither is very palatable, obviously, at the moment. And one way or another, we will end up paying for it at some time in the future, as will our descendants.
Exactly. Now, Glenn says quite reasonably, it's not freezing the price cap of the cut. It's still going up by £500. So the issue is where they freeze the price cap at. Do they freeze it at prices today, September the 7th? Do they freeze it at prices going up on October the 1st, as Glenn says, 500 quid? And if they freeze it at this point, like you've said, Ben, in theory, if the war carries on, if energy crisis carries on, in 3 years' time, the £50 billion bill we've got now could be £150 billion, because it's a blank check. It's saying to the energy suppliers, to OVO and Electricity and British Gas and Shell and everyone else who supplies our energy and saying, we're going to pay you forever, no matter what.
Yeah, so just to talk some specifics, the current energy price cap is £1,971 a year. On October 1st, that will go up to £3,549. It was obviously a huge increase, which a lot of families won't be able to afford. Simply, I mean, that trips off the tongue, won't be able to afford. That is a matter of fact, though, that lots of families simply won't be able to pay, which is quite dramatic when you actually break it down and think about it like that. Now, the level that the government might freeze it at is around about £2,500, so somewhere between the two. So it's quite right that it won't be frozen at the current level. But what the government could do is point to the help that was already announced back a few weeks ago, which is a £37 billion package, which will see households get £400 towards the increased bill. So if you put that 400 on the £1,971, you get to about £2,371, which is not far off the £2,500 that's being mooted. So I suspect that's what we might end up seeing tomorrow, somewhere around about £2,500. And the £400 you're already getting might be built into that.
So some kind of a freeze and the £400, which would be nice, I suppose. It's better than nothing, isn't it? But it's going to apply to everybody fairly equally. And, you know, the big houses that just don't care about how much energy they use, and rich people are going to get the same bung as poorer people who are going around turning everything off at the socket, aren't they? And
well,
Josie,
the problem with that is, of course, if you don't means test it, it will apply to second homeowners. It will apply literally to the billionaire, you know, the rich man in his castle or poor man at his gate. It will apply to everyone. Now, you save money on the means testing because you're not going through the bureaucracy of doing it, but it is a very blunt instrument. And of course, because poorer households spend more of their disposable income on things like this, it affects them more anyway. So the rich, wealthy households who might be able to afford it and will get it, they're going to be, forgive the pun, insulated as much as anyone else, if not more so, from price increases. And the other thing about if you do provide a rescue package, which we all want, is if you do that, it's also a disincentive then to actually try and save energy. And you mentioned going around switching the lights off. I mean, I've actually got quite strong opinions on that, that if we all switch the lights off to start with in rooms that we weren't in, well, maybe we wouldn't have quite a bad problem as we did. And that's before you get in, that's the economic argument, before you get into the saving the environment argument. My father used to do this, like I always switch the light off in the hall when we were all sitting in the living room. And as a 10-year-old, I used to do my head in. Now, paying my own bills, like I totally see what he was getting at. So we should all be doing that, regardless of the price increases, because it's good, because it saves the world's resources.
Exactly. Now, Mike's comment was annoyingly prescient, so we'll come back to that in the next section. But Josie says, did she work for a fossil fuel company in a previous job? There's no hope for our kids' futures. I despair. Well, we'll have to sort of see how that pans out a little bit, won't we, Josie, I suppose. She hasn't worked for a fossil fuel company. She is an accountant, I think, by trade.
I think she did work for Shell at one point.
Oh, right.
Yeah, back in the day, not long after leaving university, I think she did work for Shell, yeah. I think Josie's
good. And that's just wonderful news. You were right, Josie. Well done. Now, Chris says, are these price hikes, considering we are less affected by Russia than most of the EU, part of getting us back into work to bolster the economy and impact us further with fear of losing our jobs? And this allows them to remove working rights without hassle. Chris seems to think it's all a conspiracy of some sort, that the prices are affected, trying to find a way to get us back into working in our old patterns again. I don't think so, because it takes quite a lot of energy to get to work. And I have to spend a lot of energy just getting into this room sometimes. But there's plans for removing working rights and other things anyway. But that's if she survives the winter, Chris, to be fair. And as Ben said, if they can't fix this, the government collapses in a few months. It's not going to last very long. Glenn says, energy companies need to use their profits and government are cutting back green bids. Give everyone solar panels. It will help with energy shortage. There's lots of solutions, isn't there, Ben? Some of them are longer term than others. We could roll out immediate insulation help for everybody. If you go into your loft, everyone, right, and you've got that rock wool loft insulation, if it's a foot thick, it's doing a good job of insulating your home. If it has been compressed by dust and time and life to like this thick, it is no longer insulating your home. roof insulation is incredibly cheap. You can go and just buy it. The government could just help you go and buy it, and you can roll it out in an afternoon and you can fix some of your problems. That kind of thing is simple. Ben, are they going to suggest anything like that? And are they going to cap things for businesses as well? Because we've got maybe 100,000 businesses going to the wall next month.
One of the suggestions is there might be a cap for businesses, which could obviously be at a higher rate than household cap. But yeah, I mean, the small businesses that are facing astronomical increases of something like 400 to 500%. Some, shops, pubs, cafes. Those increases, they're unsustainable. Businesses won't be able to operate. They will close, and if they close, more people become unemployed and unable to afford their bills. The circular argument of it. It's desperate. So yeah, I do think there will be something for help for businesses. Opposition politicians have called for COVID-style loans or handouts of about 50 grand, I think they were, during coronavirus, during the pandemic. And that was at least as dramatic when they were shut, because if they were shut, they weren't actually using the bills. Right, they weren't making any money, but they also have to have the heating on, or cooking your bacon and eggs down the local greasy spoon, that sort of thing. So there will, I'm sure, be help for businesses. You mentioned as well about the fitting of the solar panels. One thing that has baffled me for years is why on earth we are still building houses that don't have solar panels on the roof, that don't recycle rainwater, that don't have the insulation that we're supposed to be retrofitting now.
Yeah.
Every new house should have solar panel. Okay, it would push up the cost of building a house, but comparatively to the actual cost of the house, it won't be that much. The government could pass a law very quickly that says every new house must have solar panels on the roof. Simple as. You could do that now.
You could, and it would bring down the prices massively for everybody, including if you're retrofitting. And of course, if you're a house builder and you're ordering 40,000 solar panels, the price you pay is really nowhere near the price you'd pay to fit it on one single property. So it would be amazing and create jobs. I quite agree with you. Now, this morning, Therese Coffey, our new Deputy Prime Minister, was on the radio and was saying that Liz Truss had lots of integrity. She had so much integrity, Liz Truss, that she still thinks Boris Johnson did nothing wrong. So we'll have to see how that pans out for her in the long run.